With bone marrow that could save my boyfriend's mother. The pilot suddenly announced an emergency return. Then Sloan stood up. The girl Jacob had supported for years, pointed at the cryo cooler in my arms and grabbed the flight attendant. She said, "What's inside is dangerous." The entire cabin went silent. Crew members approached immediately. Passengers turned to stare. Last life. I panicked. I showed permits, explained the transfer process, signed waiver after waiver. I even begged them not to delay. I protected the shipment. I delivered the cells. I saved his mother. And what did I get? Jacob blamed me after I reported one of Sloan's reckless stunts. He said I destroyed her future. His mother agreed. Overnight, I became the villain in their story. Then everything went dark. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the plane, back to the exact second Sloan pointed at my cooler. This time I didn't argue. Sloan instantly hid behind Jacob. Her eyes filled with tears. She was acting weird. I got scared. Jacob stepped in front of her. "Carrie, relax." She was trying to help as if I were the problem. I almost laughed. Sloan loved attention at the hospital. She turned every situation into a performance. She exaggerated diagnoses, created drama, then acted innocent when people got upset. And Jacob defended her every single time. Even today, when the crew asked whether they should inspect the cooler, I looked directly at Jacob. "You're the recipient's legal next of kin. If you authorize opening it, please confirm." He frowned. "Immediately open it." Sloan didn't even wait. She rushed forward and lifted the lid herself. Cold vapor drifted into the cabin. Nobody understood what had happened, but I did. Those cells had lost viability. The cabin burst into confusion. People ducked, people shouted. Someone demanded answers. Another passenger asked whether we needed to evacuate. Seconds passed. Nothing happened. No danger, no emergency, just a medical transport container. Then Sloan laughed. "Oh, my God, you all believed me." "What was?" "And have the mixed comm sense some enduring." The mood changed instantly. Passengers stared at her in disbelief. One woman stood up. "You scared an entire plane because you thought it was funny." Another passenger demanded security meet us on arrival. But Jacob still wrapped an arm around Sloan. "She didn't mean anything. Everyone's overreacting." Later, the crew offered to speed up arrival because of the transplant timeline. Jacob refused. Sloan had a stressful flight. "The hospital can wait." Then Sloan looked at the cooler. "It's cold. Can we chill drinks in it?" Nobody stopped her. I only asked one final time. "You confirm opening and handling the contents?" Jacob didn't even look at me. "Confirmed." He opened it again, then handed the box to Sloan. She smiled like she had won. When we finally reached the hospital, the surgical team was already waiting. Jacob finally looked uneasy. He lowered his voice. "Carrie, it'll still work, right?" I adjusted my coat and stayed silent. Minutes later, the operating room doors opened. The surgeon stepped out. His eyes said everything before his words did. "I'm sorry. The transplant could not proceed. The donor cells were no longer viable." Jacob froze, the color drained from his face. "What did you just say?" The surgeon looked directly at Jacob. "The bone marrow cells were exposed to repeated temperature fluctuations and unnecessary handling. Once that happened, we could not use them." Jacob's lips trembled. No, that's impossible." The surgeon's expression remained cold. "Who opened the transport container?" Every pair of eyes turned toward us. Jacob instinctively pointed at me. "She was carrying it." I finally spoke. "I was transporting it." I repeatedly warned everyone not to open it. The surgeon frowned. "Were the warnings ignored?" Before Jacob could answer, the flight crew who had escorted us into the hospital stepped forward. We documented everything. The lead flight attendant handed over her report. The passenger identified as Mr. Jacob personally authorized opening the medical transport container after we explained it was for an emergency transplant. Another attendant added. He also reopened it later and allowed another passenger to handle it. The surgeon's face darkened. You let someone play with donor marrow? Silence. Sloan forced out a laugh. It wasn't that serious. I barely touched it. The surgeon snapped. You destroyed someone's only chance at survival. Sloan's smile vanished. Jacob grabbed the surgeon's sleeve. There has to be another way. There isn't. When can you find another donor? The surgeon slowly shook his head. The compatibility of this donor was extraordinarily rare. He paused. And according to our records, the donor cannot undergo another harvest for medical reasons. Jacob staggered backward. Behind the operating room doors, machines began sounding long, continuous alarms. Everyone knew what that meant. A nurse hurried out, her eyes red. I'm sorry. Mrs. Hale passed away. Jacob stood perfectly still. His mother was gone. Sloan's face turned white. I didn't know. Jacob whipped around. You said it was dangerous. I was joking. A joke? His voice echoed through the hallway. My mother's dead because of your joke. Sloan burst into tears. I didn't mean it. You never mean anything. For the first time since I'd known him, Jacob looked at Sloan not with affection, but with disgust. 3 days later, the airline released its internal investigation. The cockpit voice recordings. Cabin security footage. Witness statements. Every second had been preserved. The footage clearly showed me refusing to let anyone touch the cooler. It showed me warning Jacob twice. It showed Jacob saying, I confirm. It showed Sloan laughing while opening it. The video spread across the internet. People were horrified. Who jokes about transplant organs? She killed someone. The boyfriend ignored every warning. Sloan's hospital volunteer position terminated her immediately. The university where she studied opened a disciplinary investigation. Sponsors pulled out of the medical charity events she loved posting online. Within a week, everyone knew her name. Not for kindness. For carelessness. Jacob came to find me. His beard had grown in. His eyes were hollow. He stood outside my apartment for hours before I finally opened the door. He fell to his knees. I'm sorry. I looked at him quietly. I should have believed you. You did believe me. He looked confused. You believed every warning I gave. His face slowly crumpled. You just chose Sloan instead. Tears streamed down his face. I loved you. So did I. The words came out calmly. And that's why it hurt. He reached for my hand. I stepped back. There isn't a version of this life where I can trust you again. The door closed gently between us. Months later, I received a message from the transplant registry. Another patient had been matched. This time, I personally escorted the donation. No unnecessary conversations. No compromises. No one touched the container. The transplant succeeded. Somewhere, another family celebrated a second chance. As for Jacob, I heard he visited his mother's grave every week. He always brought 2 bouquets. One for the mother he lost. And one for the future he threw away the moment he chose to trust a joke over the woman who had been trying to save her all along. Jacob disappeared from my life. Or at least, I thought he had. 6 months later, I was leaving the transplant center after another successful donor transfer when a familiar black sedan pulled up beside the curb. Jacob stepped out. He looked thinner than ever. The expensive suits were gone. His shoulders, once straight with confidence, now slumped under invisible weight. "I've been waiting for you." I sighed. "I have nothing left to say." "I know." He didn't try to stop me. Instead, he held out a small envelope. "I think this belongs to you." Inside was a cashier's check. The amount made my eyebrows rise. It was every cent I had spent over the years helping his family. Medical expenses. Travel costs. Holiday gifts. Even the engagement deposits we'd made together. Every dollar had been carefully listed on an attached spreadsheet. "I sold the house my mother left me," he said quietly. "I don't want your money. You deserve it." I deserved your trust. His lips parted. No words came out. Because there weren't any. Money could replace expenses. It couldn't replace betrayal. I tucked the envelope back into his hand. "Donate it." His eyes widened. "To the Transplant Foundation. So someone else's family gets another chance." His fingers curled around the envelope. "I will." That was the last conversation I expected we'd ever have. I was wrong. A year later, I attended a national transplant awareness gala. Doctors, nurses, donors, recipients, hundreds of people filled the ballroom. As I accepted an award for outstanding volunteer service, I noticed someone standing quietly near the back. Jacob. He didn't approach. He simply applauded with everyone else. After the ceremony, the foundation's director walked over. "You know that gentleman?" I nodded. "Unfortunately." The director smiled. "He's been anonymously funding donor transportation programs." I blinked. "What?" "He insisted we never reveal his identity." She lowered her voice. "He said he owed a debt that could never truly be repaid." I looked across the room. Jacob caught my eye. Instead of walking over, he simply bowed his head. Not asking for forgiveness. Not asking for another chance. Just acknowledging the distance between us. Then he left. Years passed. One spring morning, I received a handwritten letter. Jacob had died in a highway accident while driving home from a donor awareness fundraiser. There was no dramatic last confession. No request for forgiveness. Only one sentence addressed to me. "Thank you for teaching me that love without trust is only selfishness." I folded the letter carefully. For a long time I sat in silence. I didn't cry. The grief I'd once carried had already been buried years ago. I simply hoped that, wherever he was, he had finally found the peace that had always escaped him in life. Then I stood, picked up another cryo transport case, checked the temperature monitor one last time, and headed toward the operating room. Another patient was waiting. Another family was praying. This time, no one would stand in the way of their second chance.